let's move now to the agenda item 5, implementation of the program budget 2018 to 2019 and program budget 2020 to 2021, the regional perspective. The relevant documents are EUR/RC69/19, EUR/RC69/18, and EUR/RC69 document/4. We are very interested to listen to the presentation which will be introducing our debate. Dr. Susan Basiri, Director Administration and Finance in the Regional Office, will present an overview of the program budget implementation, as well as the regional implications of the program budget 20 to 21. Dr. Basiri, please.
Thank you, Mr. President, Chair, DDG, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure and honor to present to you once again another report on progress in implementation of program budget 2018-19 and our progress in operationalization of the program budget 2021. Next, please. Next. To start with program budget 2018-19, the approved program budget for European region stands for 256.4 million. It is a well-financed budget. By end of June, where the report that is presented to you is information is based at, we were funded at 89%, which shows in terms of the approved budget, we are in good shape. Compared to previous biennium, at the same time, we were financed by 83%. Including voluntary projections of voluntary contribution, we expect that overall increase will take us to about 96% financed approved budget by end of the biennium. This compared to last biennium, utilization also is on track and is a bit higher. Compared to last biennium same time, utilization of the approved budget in terms of expenditure at the same time, which was 57%, in this biennium has reached to 67%. Next, please. In terms of funding, as I mentioned, we are at 89%. But what is important to realize that we are below the average at the same time for the whole organization. Organization-wide funding at the same time stood at 97%. But compared to other regions, when it comes to utilization, we stand at the same time higher or highest across all the major offices. Next, please. Next. Next, please. When we are looking at financing across major offices, you need to look at horizontal. This is a heat table again. What we are looking at, we are, as I mentioned, at 89%. But when we look at the organization-wide in two categories, non-communicable diseases and health systems, it looks we are well-funded or better funded. What is important to realize in these two categories is that some program areas are better funded than other program areas. When it comes to financing, and resource mobilization, very same trend across previous biennia as well. We see that compared to other major offices, what is being mobilized is very much regional. As you can see, the blue as opposed to gray for our major office. This shows the high commitment of member states and partners to invest and make impact. And also, of course, indicates that from the globally managed resources, European region may not be seen as a priority. When we look at the support from the major donors across the biennia, in the three columns that you can see, gray, orange, and blue, the top 12 donors of the European region are presented in this slide. And of course, it shows that regional importance is given by regional contributors. At the same time, it also shows that USA and Japan are among the major contributors, followed by European Commission and Gavi for European region. What is important to realize also, consistent across the biennials, the proportion of flexible resources is not changing. What is increasing is the proportion of voluntary contribution. And that can create or bring an impact on programmatic areas where highly specified funding are not allocated to. So when it comes to the size, as the size of the budget and the size of the ambition is increasing or getting bigger, flexibility of financing will, at the same time, will be less for leadership to push the flexible funds to areas where highly specified funding are not available. If we go a little bit deeper into the program, into category level, as you can see, blue, red, and maybe white can show you that communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases and health system looks like, in terms of available resources and projected resources, in a very good shape. But when we look at the life course, promoting health through life course, health emergencies program from prevention side, not from operation side, and corporate services enabling functions, those are the areas that, and also they are the areas that are highly dependent on flexible resources. But as I mentioned, we are right in track. We are at a better utilization compared to last biennium. So it means that we will be able to conclude this biennium in the right way, and perhaps at the same time all the challenges in the right way that we have been addressing in terms of bridging to General Program of Work 13 shows that we have been robust as well in implementation and utilization of the program budget for the current biennium. So we are moving towards the next biennium in the right way. So moving to the next biennium, while we were concluding in utilization of the program budget and delivering of results, we are now preparing, operationalizing the program budget 2021. The collective work that regional office has done, as you have heard through previous presentations and leadership, is rooted in Health 2022, the 2020 and SDGs. And it means that Euro has been on a solid ground for utilization of General Program of Work 13. The framework goes at the heart of the matter, and because we are now looking at causes of causes or outcomes, and it looks as, and in our framework, it tackles social, economic, cultural, and environmental determinants. We are going to continue with this work also in the next biennium program budget 2020. In terms of the size of the program budget, we have an increase of 21.5 million compared to the current biennium. And this 21.5 million is about 7.4% of the total increase that you have approved in World Health Assembly last May. We are the second lowest, or let's say one of the smallest of the budgets, approved budgets across the organization. Of course, the program budget for the duration of General Program of Work 13 follows the strategic budget space allocation principles, whereas it was agreed by membership that based on the strategic budget space allocation, there will be increase relative to other major offices for European region. But as you can see, that increase may not appear in the biennium 2021, but it will eventually appear in the biennium 22-23, which will result into 6.4% increase in that component. What we are looking at in terms of increase is not a smooth in all flexibility. This 21.5 million increase has concentration mainly in three components: polio transition, country capacity, norms and standards, as you have been deliberated on also during the World Health Assembly. And therefore, due to specificities of European region, the proportion that comes to European region of that increase is impacted. If we are progressing now in operation, if we are advancing in operationalization of the program budget, and in this advancement, we have now almost there with our plans based on iterations, based on priority setting that has started in consultation with you. And we are landing again in approximately 60-40% of the budget divided between regional and country offices, which is very much has been the trend in European region in the last biennium. And if you look at proportions based on strategic priorities, the main strategic, the highest among the others is the universal health coverage, the first pillar in terms of health systems and universal health coverage, followed by prevention and management of emergencies, and then followed by healthy populations and environments. Enabling functions, of course, is part of the fourth pillar, which includes also data and innovation, leadership and administration, as you can see in the information in the slide. Now, what we have so far been able to do, we have continued with iteration on the bottom-up iterative process of priority setting and refining it, which started last October, in consultation with you. And then we continued with our discussions on how we are going to have more building on the lessons learned, interprogrammatic, cross-programmatic, collaborative work. And then based on lessons learned, was experience that we had, how to refine it. What is very new for all of us, and we are building on it, is that priority setting is based on outcomes, midterm outcomes, mid-level outcomes, rather than outputs. There is a strong systematic attempt and approach for building on development and developing country support plans. We are, for the first time, having conversation and interaction for building and refining global and regional public health goods. And we had, for the first time, this in the last few weeks, same as other major offices, planning sessions with headquarter teams and outcome and output focal points, as it was mentioned by DDG in her the presentation yesterday. What is next? In the next few months, we are continuing with finalizing our operational plans, particularly for human resource planning. It will be further worked and refined. We will finalize our work around interprogrammatic and cross-program work. We will continue with aligning and refining our work that is going to be together with at the corporate level on public health goods. And of course, we need to make sure that everything is in the system functioning. But also, what we are working very closely with headquarters is on, and with the corporate team, is on building the new way of monitoring and reporting, and how we are going to provide you with better reports based on general program of work and based on 13 and based on contribution to impacts and outcomes, which Mr. President gives, if with your permission, I will stop here and I will ask for your permission for Dr. Asma and Mr. Holo to continue. Thank you.
Yes, of course. Let me remind you that in Resolution WHO 72.1, the World Health Assembly requested the Director General to continue developing the results framework for the 13th General Program of Work in consultation with the regional committees. The present document is submitted to RC Euro for comments and input. I would like now to pass the floor to Dr. Asma and then Mr. Imre Holo for a few remarks. Please.
Good. Thank you very much, Your Excellencies and President, distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for taking the time to review the results framework. As was previously stated, accountability to member states is central to the Secretariat, and we do have a shared and collective responsibility to ensure that our investments are measured and tracked, and we make an impact as we have promised in the GPW 13 to be results driven and make an impact at the country level. What I would like to briefly share with you is the progress and key advances that we have made since the World Health Assembly and the recommendations made by the member states to the Secretariat. As you can recall, that during the World Health Assembly, it was requested that the Secretariat continue to develop and finalize the results framework in consultation with you, our member states, through the regional committees. We have had similar discussions in the previous two regional committees in Afro and in Southeast Asia. And we received very constructive feedback. And previously to the World Health Assembly and to this regional committee, if you remember, we have had a series of online consultations. We had mission briefings in Geneva, as well as during the Executive Board, as well as during the World Health Assembly. So in summary, I think we are on the road to finalize the way we will measure the GPW 13 and move our member states and countries and partners towards an accountability framework. So this is quickly to seek your input today as we continue to finalize jointly. This is a busy slide, but I think this is the best we could come up with to describe the results framework. On the left, you will see a pyramid, and that is the GPW 13 impact measurement. It's a pyramid with 3 sections, and on the top is the healthy life expectancy that we all are pursuing. The middle part is the triple billion indices, targets that will be measured by indices, and the bottom of the pyramid are the outcome indicators. This is enshrined in the SDGs and built from the SDGs because, as was said earlier by the incoming RD, that we don't want to add any additional burden on the member states, whether it is data collection or reporting. So this approach takes care of that. The middle part is one that Imre Holo will be sharing, is the Secretariat's contribution through the balance scorecard. And on the right, you see the country's case studies and country work, which is qualitative case studies to understand what are the best practices or where the challenges are and the best practices that could be spread globally. As I mentioned, there is work that has been underway. I will start from the 46 programmatic indicators and milestones, just to summarize that 38 of the 46 programmatic outcome indicators are directly derived from the SDGs. The 8 that are non-SDGs, but they are identified in the World Health Assembly resolutions and also deals with major public health priorities such as antimicrobial resistance and the specific indicators related to non-communicable diseases, given that the SDG had only one composite indicator on NCDs. The impact measurement goes a bit into detail of that. And then emergencies and polio is one of the targets that comprise the varied 6 under these categories. The 3 targets measured through 3 indices. Universal health coverage, we maintain to use the SDG indicator 3.8.1 for service coverage and 3.8.2 for financial protection. And we are now currently testing how this composite indicator would be calculated to report on the UHC billion at the country level and moving up to the global level. The health emergencies indicator is built on 3 indicators, and this is an innovation that has been developed as a result on how we measure the preparedness, the response capacity of the countries. There are 3 levels within this health emergencies index. One is a prepare index, which we use international health regulations, which are already reported and a part of SDGs. The prevent part of the emergencies is the routine immunization. And the new one is the detect and the timeliness of response, which I think we all are working towards. And this index in a composite way would help move countries and from one level to the other so that we see how countries are able to be better prepared at all levels. And finally, the other advance is the Healthier Population Index, and that is work in progress. And this is an index that comprises a series of SDG indicators that will enable us to promote multi-sectoral approaches and to make populations healthier. And there are a series of these indicators from tobacco prevalence to water and sanitation and climate and environment and others. And we will be using the life-touched approach to count the billions. And all of these 3 will be aligned to the healthy life expectancy, which is a summary indicator that connects towards reaching not only life expectancy, but healthy life expectancy. And Europe has been a pioneer, and we have a lot that we are learning that can be taken at a global level. So thank you. Quick review to demonstrate that the Euro Joint Monitoring Framework and its the indicators are aligned with the GPW Impact Framework. As you can see that we are doing very careful mapping, again, to leverage what the member states are already reporting on and to ensure that there is no additional burden, but also to have a sharpened reporting. And all 6 themes that are in Joint Monitoring Framework as well as GPW 13 are in complete alignment. And there are details that the European Joint Monitoring Framework is much more detailed oriented and it will also enable us to report on GPW 13. For example, for TB monitoring, incidence is used in the joint monitoring framework, and whereas in GPW 13, because we aligned it completely with the SDGs, we use the mortality indicator. These are important next steps. We will continue to seek your input as we finalize it. So this consultation now today, and to get your feedback through the regional committees, and we will be doing a similar one with other regions, followed by a technical expert meeting where we are inviting member states and the technical teams for a meeting on 17th and 18th of October in Geneva to review in detail the methods. The methods report, the draft has been posted yesterday on the GPW website for your review. We will continue following the meeting in October to establish baselines and the milestones. Baseline starting in 2018, this is the period of GPW 13, which starts in 2019 to 2023. 2023, as you know, is a midpoint towards SDGs, and it also aligns with the SDG Global Action Plan. Followed by informal member state consultation that is scheduled for 4th of November, and we will be receiving further input as we continue to finalize, and then finally during the executive board, we expect to present what we have gathered and revised and updated the results framework. I will now pass on to Imre to continue with the scorecard, and we'll be back. Thank you.
So what Samira has presented until now is the work that we, the Secretariat, are doing together with member states. But of course the question came, how can you measure our accountability and the Secretariat's contribution to the 3 billions? And you probably know that we have suggested a balanced scorecard method to measure the output, which is the Secretariat's contribution. And this was, the draft of that was part of the program budget document 2021. Just to remind everybody what it is that we're going to do. So we have 42 outputs in the program budget. These are integrated outputs, which is, again, what it is that we, the Secretary, are doing in order to achieve the outcomes and then the 3 billion impact targets. And we decided to measure our output along 6 dimensions. 3 out of these dimensions are the core strategic shifts of the GPW 13. These are, in a way, the core areas that WHO is active on. The first is leadership. The second is normative work, delivery of global public health goods. And the third is technical support to countries. So these are the 3 strategic shifts which we measure at the output level. And what it means is that we talked about it already, and you probably know that, for example, we have finalized the definition and prioritization of the global public health goods for the first time in the history of WHO. We have identified 326 global goods. These are directly linked to a output. So the 326 are distributed among the 42 outputs. And then for every output, we will measure how many of the public health goods this output actually implemented, what was the uptake of that in the countries, what was the quality, etc. So that will give one dimension of the output scorecard. The same is true for country support. As Samira and already also Zsuzsanna mentioned, that we have for the first time done a very serious consultation across the 3 levels of the organization to identify what is the country support that each level is doing in order to help the countries and country offices to implement their work program. That is captured also by outputs, and through the output balance scorecard, we're going to measure how well that was done. And the same is true for the leadership function. Then there are three other dimensions we call, which we added, which we felt is very important to really disaggregate what it is that the Secretariat is doing. One is value for money, and that's something that we have started about a year and a half ago. But we've been struggling how to mainstream value for money into the everyday work of the Secretariat. So we decided to put it as part of the balance scorecard. So every output will not only have to explain and present what it is that they have achieved, but also show whether they have achieved value for money while they were doing that. The other element which we decided to include is gender equity and rights. That was another area that's been a subject that we've been working on also very strongly in Euro, but was never really mainstreamed in the core work of WHO. Now, this is also an element that all our colleagues will have to consider and report on, that while they were doing all this, how did they consider the elements of gender equity and rights? And lastly, after strong push especially by European member states, we're including a numeric target element in the balance scorecard, which also measures through selected indicators what it is that output had achieved and how this output is actually contributing to the outcomes. This is the most difficult part, because we don't want to end up with thousands of indicators, but at the same time, we understand that you would like to keep a numeric target, how it contributes to the measurement. So what happened since WHA? We started pilot testing of the framework, and we had series of internal consultations across the three levels of the organization, and we organized also a workshop. And basically, the feedback was from our colleagues. Everybody liked it on paper, but they were a bit taken aback by the complexity of all this. So the message was clearly yes, yes, but please keep it as pragmatic and as light as possible, especially while we're all learning to implement this. And I'm not going to all the details, but basically what I would like to say is that what we're doing right now is we're finalizing how to come to a final score on all the dimensions. We're also finalizing a measurement instrument guide that will, especially in areas like value for money and gender equity and rights, which are not concepts that are so easy to understand for all our technical colleagues. We give a very detailed guide on how, and very practical on how to arrive to scoring. And closely working with Samira's team, we're finalizing the numeric targets and numeric indicators that will be assigned to each outputs. And here we would like to subscribe to the mantra that we would like to use existing indicators as much as possible, not to put additional burden on our colleagues. And maybe we will have similar indicators in some outputs, so we don't have to have 42 completely different figures. And then once it's done, we will have member states briefing together with Samira, as she had alluded to earlier. And of course, this will be presented to the Executive Board in January for your final approval. Thank you very much.